The concept of illumination comes from the idea of being able to see or understand once and for all something that was not yet clear enough, something that still remained hidden in the dark, something about which finally we get a clear picture that allows us to understand it. It is like the sunlight that illuminates everything during the day, which allows us to seek sustenance and to be alert to danger. It is the light that has been the foundation of the appreciation and love to the sun as the star that is the source of life in our own macrocosm. And as it has always been the focus of all the cycles in nature, by consequence, it is also a fundamental aspect in many philosophical and mystical systems, in the same way that it has been the basis for science and development of humanity beyond a mere worship to the sun. Scientifically and philosophically, there is an agreement regarding the origin of the universe, at least in regards to the fact that the universe stems from unit. Just as the Big Bang showed the expansion from a single point, creation is born with light as a base and common source for all that exists in this universe we inhabit and that inhabit us. Light, seen as the source of absolute power that energizes everything, that constitutes everything, is then the origin and purpose of everything. The particles of our physical body are practically static, crystallized, and with a dense energy vibration which keep us trapped in time and space. Our aim today is how to make possible to be part of that highest vibrational state. That is what we call the birth of a new spiritual consciousness, making possible the union of what is above with what is below, symbolically speaking. The dense and material with the spiritual, which is in an energy vibration of a much higher frequency. It is a spiritual light that we call the birth of a new consciousness, the light of the awakening of consciousness. It is the light that radiates and emerges from within in our hearts. And when we start talking about achieving enlightenment, we imply becoming aware of our spiritual nature. Not as a goal itself that can be reached with the snapping of the fingers, but as a continuous process that develops progressively, little by little. Do you remember when Siddhartha, the Buddha, refers to this process? And how he begins saying that even though he could see a splendor of the universal light emanating from the spiritual world, he was not able to distinguish anything, neither forms nor images, nothing, because his enlightenment was not yet pure enough. Then later, he could already perceive not only the light, but the different images and shapes within the light without recognizing their meaning, because his enlightenment was not yet pure enough. As he progressed on his path through enlightenment, he incrementally began to recognize those forms as the expression of a spiritual entities without even understanding their origin. Later on, he not only understood their origin, but the actions of those spiritual entities as well as their state of consciousness. And then he finally understood that he himself had inhabited those realms in the past, and that together they had been part of each other as a whole. And it is in that moment that he fully conceives and achieves the purity of his enlightenment. We have to understand that certain traditional ideological methods and systems, no matter how old or established they are in the society we inhabit, they can no longer be applied to the current state of being. We have to understand that our mental creations are the ones that actually set the limits of our perceptions. We have created an artificial intellectual entanglement that covers one after another the simplicity of universal beauty. Einstein used to say that if you can't explain something simply, it is because you do not understand it well enough. It is only when we can see everything clearly that we experience enlightenment. Now, awareness occurs externally and internally. Externally, when we realize that something has been broken and needs to be fixed or renewed. We do question ourselves and scrutinize our own answers. We do not just swallow everything we say without questioning it. Eventually, our consciousness transcends the third dimension and vibrates, synchronized with the light that awakens in our core, in the center of our microcosm. That is the internal aspect. That is why this process is called enlightenment. Because it is that light within us, the God within us, the universal gnosis, the kingdom of heaven within ourselves, which is our essence and presence here and now. That divine nature is the eternal aspect within us. The point is that we must overcome our greatest obstacle, our own creations, the perception of the world that is based on our own egocentric being, our own beliefs and conditionings, our expectations, and the memories of the life we live now, but of the past lives as well. Overcoming this obstacle is a work of self-initiation. Our mind must understand and recognize this obstacle, must work on it. This self-initiation is not a simple process of just learning and understanding something. It is an inner combat, a fight between the new human being that is being born and forming under the radiant divine knowledge, under the old astral and mental garment, under the infinite conditionings and automatisms of our behavior, which of course tries to prevent losing control of the vital gravity. Imagine piloting a plane. Did you know that a plane is, of course, 95% of the time but the pilot keeps correcting the course over and over again until he reaches his destination? It is a continuous effort which has its cycles. We keep correcting the direction when we deviate, preparing for the next detour. This is not like taking a pill that gives way to the universal principle of which we were talking about. The light of our heart needs the continued support of our conscious being, so it has the opportunity to transform those dense components and raise them into higher frequencies that can truly nourish our being as an integral part of the universe in eternity. And this is true freedom. And what comes next? Could it be that we just comfortably sit to enjoy our own freedom as the kidnapped person who has managed to escape from prison, but knowing that it is still full of other prisoners? The mere transmission of a teaching that gives brilliant and satisfactory answers to deep concerns would never be enough, because without experiencing renewal and transformation, these would just be empty words. It is like having a map without walking the path, like having studied medicine for years and not having healed anyone. Enlightenment demonstrates the evolution of each person's state of being and his or her state of consciousness. This process consists of going gradually, little by little, reaching the state of becoming the truth. This evolution requires a surrender, a commitment to oneself to seek the truth. By entering such a commitment, we focus our being, our energies on that only task, and therefore, each day we glimpse a little more of the truth. And as we go towards that truth, a part of our being awakens. Truth transcends, and we become like a lighthouse that attracts the attention of our fellow human beings. This process is different for each individual. Some become one with the truth faster than others. Some are more resistant to change than others. Truth is such a unique state that once you acquire it, once you accept it as part of your own being, you cannot go back, as it changes you, transforms you. It turns you into a different being from the one you used to be before accepting it. You become one with truth in itself. When a seeker begins his or her search for truth, he has begun to enlighten. He has received the radiance of light, but as the Buddha said about it, it cannot be seen very clear yet, because the purification of the candidate is not yet complete. As the candidate goes through this process of transformation and purification of his being, enlightenment becomes a real fact, increasing in strength and light. The process works gradually and simultaneously. As the human being gradually reaches enlightenment, he or she acquires the ability to perceive the obstacles that his very own being provided or presented during this process of seeking and transformation. Discernment becomes increasingly clearer, brighter, and also enables you to identify which beings, which energies block your path besides yourself. When we come together during our presentations, we are all enlightened to some degree. But we have to increase our progress since our purification is not complete. This gathering of lights, active in the heart of each one of the participants, is in itself a moment of enlightenment. Not only because of what is learned or because of the exchange during the conversation, but particularly because of the experience of a whole group of people who have temporarily put aside everyday life to strengthen that light within themselves. That action, that experience purifies, even if it only during that moment. And if we keep it active in our daily life, when we let the light of our heart be the one to guide us, when we set aside our attachments, habits, and inertia, so that the enlightenment can take place, it purifies even more. And as we purify ourselves, we become enlightened. It would be worth it asking ourselves, what does enlighten us? When we say we become enlightened, who does really become enlightened? Why do we talk about enlightenment? Can enlightenment be lost once it is reached? These matters are the focus and center of our conversation. We invite you to participate in our cycle of public talks during this month of December to further explore this subject. Thank you for sharing your time with us.